And I apologize for that. I'm trying to essentially devote everything to the development of the reciprocity platform.
Yeah.
And so,
Why do
using
you need to apologize? You
Zoom.
don't need to apologize for anything. Why?
Well, I do appreciate it. That's what I wanted
Yeah.
to say.
So tell me a
So,
little bit more about the reciprocity. What are you trying to
oh,
do?
very, very cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to introduce you first. You're Karim Lakhani. Is that how you
Lakhani,
say
yeah.
Lakhani?
Yeah.
You're a full professor at the Harvard Business School, and
Yeah.
you've done all sorts of work on digital environments. Now you're doing stuff on the science of science. So for those that are following along, watching this, Karim is kind of a big deal. Um,
My family doesn't think
so
so.
yeah. No, I'm absolutely flattered that you reached out. So the Reciprocity Project is this idea where I started. I thought that there was a better way for us to actually do science, and I
Yes.
started building this platform about 7 years ago. And I thought we can create kind of like a sharing economy, peer-to-peer kind of model where we are helping each other out
Yeah.
through reciprocity. That's the whole
Nice.
story with it, with
Yeah.
writing papers. And
Yeah.
as I started putting out all of this information, um, I began to realize. So first of all, there's crickets, as you probably understand with software development.
Yeah.
Like nothing happened. And
Yeah.
then I had to start marketing it, and I had to start talking to people about it. So then I started talking about real life stuff
Yeah.
as a researcher, as a professor, as
Yeah.
graduate student, all of the things that we go through
Yeah.
in terms of the essentially, maintaining a good, healthy mind
Yes.
as we're
Yeah.
doing this. And that's when it started to actually get a lot more traction, when people started to
Nice.
pay attention to it.
Nice.
Um, and I think it's a missing part of the puzzle.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. It's nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw a few of your videos. They're super nice. They're like, oh, cool people. Yeah. Nice.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And ultimately what I'm trying to do is, and some of them are tackling difficult problems, but then at the
Yes.
end trying to walk people through to the,
Yeah.
you can be okay.
Yeah.
I'm sort of seeing myself as somebody's gonna watch us at 2 a.m. wondering, like, what the hell's happening to me?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Great.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm assuming you probably go through a lot of this, right? You've probably have gone through a lot of the same emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and
It's
given
not all
your
it's not all rainbows and unicorns, you know.
I mean, but I also think it's not different than everyday life.
Yes, exactly.
And then it's figuring out how do we connect the two, and living a bit of a more public life than I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are used to.
Yeah. Yeah.
um how do we get people, how do we get more people interested in science and tell them
Yes.
the truth of it?
Yeah.
And I also think B is that there's a lot of misconceptions about
Yes.
what we actually do.
Yes.
And so, if we can be the voice of it, and if we
I
could use
love it.
available tools,
Yeah.
digital tools, which I'm assuming, are pretty powerful, right?
Yeah.
We can make an enormous impact.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me about your interest in the science of science. I saw this paper that and I love the research paper that you're looking at. Was, you know, what do people actually do as a researcher and as a scientist in terms of their
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a long circuitous story. I mean, I think I had no intentions ever to be a researcher. I mean, I remember I did my master's thesis with who became my doctoral advisor, Eric von Hippel at MIT, and I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed doing the thesis. I thought I accomplished it. It was like early days of open source in 1999. Um, and I thought I found something cool and presented. And he's like, okay, you got to stick around and do a PhD. I'm like, and I remember taking this elevator ride with him. I'd worked in the industry
Sure.
before I did my master's. And I take the elevator ride with him. I go, Eric, I don't want to be writing obscure papers in obscure journals. Like, what is that? Like, I'm going to go to consulting and make money and actually impact the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. Very
Uh,
sympathetic to
and he was like, oh, you'll be back.
that.
And so certainly, but he gave me the love of like research and like digging into stuff. And I did come back because I got bored in consulting. I had a great time, but I got bored.
Yeah,
And I craved autonomy and the sense of discovery. You know, when you have a cool
yeah,
question, you get the
yeah.
data, you figure it out, and you go, "Wow, I'm the first person in the world to like look at this and make sense of it." That's what I thought what I'd done with open source way back when. Um, and so, my open source work starts with communities. There's a lot of stuff around communities and goes deep. And Eric had taught me like, look at the work, look at what people are actually doing, and then build the methodologies on top of it. Don't just like come in with a theory to test. Like come in and look first, and then abstract out.
Hmm.
Um, and then while I was doing my dissertation with him, my PhD with him, I got bored and started reading fiction, science fiction, Neil Stevenson, and came across a reference to the Longitude Prize. And you'll see this all connect back. And in that case, it was like, how this longitude problem got solved by this clockmaker, and even Newton was proved wrong, all kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, so interesting. And it was related to my research because I was seeing all these unusual people collaborate and solve problems. And then I saw, oh, a contest as ways to attract unusual people to solve scientific problems as well. So I did
Hmm.
a whole research stream on both communities and contests to solve science and innovation problems. That was my thesis, my PhD thesis. A few years later, I'm here at Harvard. I'm actually talking to people at the medical school. We have a very big medical school establishment, 20,000 adjunct professors and all that kind of stuff. It's crazy. And talking to some of the leadership there, and goes, "Oh, you guys also collaborate and compete in the ways in which science gets done. Science is a community, but you're competing for grants, you're competing for spaces, and you're racing for discoveries. So it's both a competition and collaboration." I go, great. So I've been looking at these weird software developers online, but here in my backyard are these people that are also doing the same kind of thing, building
Hmm.
knowledge in communities, collaborating, but also competing. So I basically took that framework and applied it there as well. And that has been an amazing rich discovery. And really the person who got me in is Dr. Eva Guinan. She is a co-author of mine. We published many papers, and she really sort of channels for me like what goes on in the life sciences with the scientists doing basic discovery or clinical translation work. And
Hmm.
and we really started to collaborate together and do projects around both ideation, on collaboration and evaluation and competition and so forth. And so it's been a rich partnership and collaboration with Ava. But we've been able to apply again, being true to what they do, but then applying sort of both sort of sociological and managerial perspectives on this, but also economic theory on top of it as well. And then
Hmm.
run some pretty cool field experiments and that kind of stuff. And the best part always was like, like I always joke with these people that run these institutions and even the scientists that go like, you would never accept a paper in any of your journals that was not a randomized controlled trial. Yes? Great. Then how do you know that whatever intervention or incentives you want to do for scientists are actually going to work? You have a point of view. Okay, well, let's
No,
go
I
test
know,
it.
I know.
It's so funny. And they will be like, no, no, I know what I'm doing. I know what you're doing. But so do all these people think they know what they're doing with their magic drugs. But you still want a rigorous trial. Why won't you also do the same thing around scientist work and the science of science? So that
Hmm.
was like a very interesting opening for them to say, oh, yeah, maybe we should apply scientific methods to the way we do science. It's been
Well,
so much fun.
and it's fascinating because we work in this area, and yet, and from a management perspective, we teach all of these things, and then it gets lost in translation
Yeah, totally.
in our own fields,
Totally. Totally.
and how to deal with a lot of the things that we deal with, or to
Yeah.
create exploration, right?
Yeah.
As you're pointing out, and a lot of it we don't know. It would be nice to know
Yeah.
what the right answer is with doing some of these things, but often you just need to do like a randomized controlled trial or something
Yeah.
along those lines, like
Yeah.
actually experiment with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Find ways to get causality. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how did you get into this idea of looking at specifically research hours, or the number of hours that people are spending on various different things? I think like inputs are something that are not studied that
Yes,
much.
yes.
Uh,
Yeah,
and why?
again, look, I've been blessed with incredible collaborators. One of the things I've learned is find collaborators that are smarter than you, and then work with them. So this is, Kyle Myers, who's an economist, works in our unit. We were lucky to recruit him from he did his PhD at Wharton at Penn, and he's like, and also my colleagues Marie Thursby and Jerry Thursby, who used to be at Georgia Tech. Um, they're both hardcore economists thinking about applied to science, and they go like, "Oh, we've always looked at the outputs, papers and patents, but we don't look at the inputs.
Nothing.
So let's go look at inputs." And in fact, the precursor to all that work was actually we had this instrument and survey figured out a while back, and then COVID hit, and so we actually shifted, and we said, okay, now we can. Who the hell knows
Mm.
what's going on at the moment? And so then I reached out to Dashun Wong at Kellogg,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
who's amazing scholar as well, great friend, great collaborator. And I said, look, we have this instrument. I think we should what should we do? And he was like, let's flip it to COVID and like understand what's happening to people in COVID in the moment. And so during COVID, but nothing else to do. So we said, okay, we're going to go and pivot the survey to actually understand how COVID is impacting scholars or scientists. And we were asking like not similar questions, but similar type of questions, like what's going on to your lab? What are you working? Are you not working? What kind of questions are you working on, and so forth. And so that was a precursor, and that paper was probably the fastest paper I ever got done. I think we got IRB approval in 3 weeks. Again, IRB probably wasn't that busy at that time.
That's
Uh,
insane.
and our
At my
team worked
institution, it
their
would take
butt
6
off.
weeks.
Our team worked their butt off. So Kyle, Dashun and his team, our team here, Nina Cahoyas really helped us launch the survey. Um, the Thursby's working with us as well. And we created the survey. We had advice from people who were like, high level folks at Yale to give us saying like, do we have this right? Anyway, so we had this big collaboration spin up, run the survey, do the analysis, and get the paper out by like September of COVID, right? And that was like, okay, we feel good. We can actually like ask people. And scientists will respond, and they're actually curious as well because they all want to know where they are in the distribution anyway, right? Of various things. We still like to rank and stack.
Social comparison, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was a precursor. And then once things calmed down and so forth, then we decided to go, hey, let's actually understand inputs and where time's allocated. There is a history of this. Like, my colleague Rafael Sadoun has done time allocation work with CEOs and
Hmm.
managers. Like, where do you
Hmm.
guys spend? Because that's the main thing.
Fascinating.
Where you
Yeah.
spend your time is what your priorities are. You can say whatever your priorities are, but where you spend your time is where your priorities are. You know.
Absolutely.
Um,
And it's so fascinating. And that's one of there's like an HBR article I think he did. And I default that in my mind, if these Fortune 500 CEOs, they're
yes.
probably they're supposed to be the most busiest people on earth.
Yes.
If they're getting, their Sundays off and, spending a half a day on Saturday or whatnot with their
Yes.
family, I mean, like, we should be able to do that too, right? Like, we should be able to,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, give
Exactly.
our, just have the mental break and
Yes.
to do all of those things that, doing laundry, for
No,
example, that's
100%. Doing dishes, doing laundry,
yeah,
listening to
yeah,
music.
absolutely,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like reading fiction. Like I like to love reading fiction. I'm a big sci-fi nerd. So I actually get inspired quite a bit by that. And all my recent stuff on AI that we're doing is all inspired by, all the science fiction readings I've been doing for a long time. So it's kind of
That's
fun.
that's super cool. So do you spend a great deal of time doing that on?
I mean, it varies, right? It
Yeah.
depends what's going on. What it is that, like, I think what people try to, it's an interesting question. Do you compartmentalize or do you integrate?
Hmm.
It's an interesting question. I've always been like, for me, and this is me. I don't think I'm going to say like that's like the only way, or the right way. For me, integration helps because I'm like a connectionist. Like I like to make
Yeah.
connections. Um, and so by being in different things, but always trying to say like, what's the connection here? Or I don't even ask it explicitly. Sort of it's in the back of my brain. Like some connections are being formed, and I try to sort of make that happen. So I was reading sci-fi a long time ago, right? Teenager on kind of thing, which was a long time ago, and uh, uh, last century activities, and as I started to do more and more more and more work in AI and so forth as well, I was like, all those books I read are now more relevant now, and let me find new books as well in this thing. And
Huh.
so I get a nice romp through somebody's mind about sci-fi, but then I also get to like draw connections to my research as well. It's kind of
I
fun.
wish I could. I wish I could talk to you a long time. I think we probably have a little bit of connections with this.
Yeah,
Um,
fun
so
though.
I know we're almost at our time in terms of what you allocated.
We have a few more minutes. We can go longer.
Okay, I just don't want to like take too long, but
Oh, this is fun.
what what would you change in science if you could be God?
Oh my God.
Uh, and
Well, first,
what
I'm
would
an
that actually
atheist,
look
so like
like?
I don't believe in God, so there's no deity in the
Well,
first
I
place.
know, but
It's
the
already
godliness
antithetical to how I
after.
think.
You're doing a randomized controlled trial on
Yes,
science,
yes, yes, yeah, exactly. What
yeah.
would I change in science?
And you,
One area for sure, and actually people are working on this as well. So like I'm gonna get super nerdy. Like we know that allocation of resources in sciences are biased. There's many studies that sort of point towards that. Um, uh, proposal early evaluation of ideas is also there's a bias against novelty. We've run some randomized experiments on that as well. Um, and the question I've always asked is like, and some funding agencies are trying to like, what if we just made it a lottery? What if we just gave people more, like instead of like the enormous efforts we do on selection, all the panels and this and that and the humming and hawing. What if it was a lottery, and so people had more shots to try some things, and how would that change the direction of science? Which I think would be kind of fun, right? Because funding matters. Uh, I'm lucky to be at a place where we have resources that we can get, and if I ask for resources, it's effort, of course, got to work at it, but we can get them. But that doesn't mean that everybody else has that opportunity. So what could we be doing systematically to allow more
yeah,
bets to
yeah.
things, right? Because what we found was interesting is and this is like work I've done with my colleague, my former postdoc, and now he's a professor at Michigan, uh, um, that in the ideation phase, in the proposal phase, there's a bias against novelty. But once you get the study done, in fact, the top journals actually are pro novelty. They'll pick stuff that's cool and new. It's kind of
Hmm.
weird because
Hmm.
when we first started, we started at the funding side and said, oh, all of peer review is biased against novelty. That was my perspective. Then when we did this other study that Michel led, uh, we say no. In fact, they're contrary to my expectations. These journals are pro novelty. It's like, oh, okay, cool, fun. That's good, right? And so given that, I'm just curious about. There are some experiments in Europe and some other private foundations which have been trying to do that. But like it runs counter to how very smart people are going to tell you what's a good idea, kind of a
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
When in fact, very smart people are coming up with good ideas. And, you know, and if you believe our story about there's a buy, we see the thing is people say, well, if it's new, it's never been done, maybe it's not a good idea. And I'm saying that means that you're anticipating that all the novel ideas are left tail distributed, but they could just be normally distributed, but your bias against novelty is chopping off much
Mm-hmm.
of that part of the exploration in science. So I think that would be like a fun thing to sort of institute at a much greater scale, right? Like a
But
much
also, I think also being able to give them substantial funds and research, not just like funds, but I think sometimes people have novel ideas and it's hard
yes,
for them to like put it into
yes,
practice
yes,
because they, you know, I do think that there is some learning that goes on in terms
yes.
of, if you went to a higher status institution, you get taught to write better and things along those lines, right?
ChatGPT solves all of that now.
Yeah.
Give everybody $20 subsidy to get ChatGPT, or to spend your
Maybe
own
that's
money.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
But
but I think there's a separate thing. So the other cool experiment, me playing God, which uh, my mom listens to this. She's like, "What do you mean you're an atheist?" Uh, um, uh, uh, the other thing I would sort of say, which is kind of cool, is opportunity. How do we distribute opportunity more? Again, what I see is that where I am, I see more, so I can
yeah.
pick and choose and do that. Could we make that more available? But also, I've been indebted to people that became my mentors. I would not be here without Eric Von Hippel taking an interest in me, without Mike Tushman taking an interest in me, without Eva Guinan taking an interest in me, Lee Nadler taking an interest, all these people, all these incredible Marco Ianciti, right? I've been over blessed with mentors. It's
Yeah.
freaking incredible. I'm so lucky, right, to have all these men. Even now at this stage in my life, I still look out for mentors. I look for mentors.
Yeah.
Like, what can I
Yeah.
learn from, and so forth. And I'm lucky to get that. But how do we actually again make that? Like I think talent is widely distributed, opportunity is not, and mentorship is not. And I think we need both. I think we. So is there a way for us to sprinkle mentorship more randomly as well to people? How
So
would we
how
do
we do
that?
that with the Reciprocity Project? By
That's
doing
exactly.
this,
No,
spreading the
that's
word.
exactly what you're doing. Exactly. And I think it's
Yeah.
so important. And one of my first, there were two aha moments which made me say I want to be an academic. I remember this so clearly. I was like looking at open source, and Eric said, go read some papers about why do you think people are motivated. And I ended up reading Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's book on flow. It
Mhm.
was called Beyond uh, Anxiety and Boredom. That was the name of the book. And I read that book and I go, oh, this is what research is. Yes. And the thrill of like, oh, and then of course he had a framework for me to think about flow and all that kind of stuff, and why software developers were doing that. I was like, wow. And it felt like it felt like a mentor in a book talking to me. Like, yeah, I remember the moment I'm sitting in Kendall Square taking a subway ride into downtown Boston, and like I can still feel it viscerally. Like it's 1998. I can feel it in my bones even right now. Like you're transporting me there as I'm talking about that moment. And then as I was doing my first research project, I was trying to understand, like, these people were helping strangers on Usenet with like questions about an open source web server called Apache at that time. And but these guys were like answering so many questions. And so it wasn't like tit for tat reciprocity, right? And then I remember doing like, what else kind of reciprocity is there? And then I remember reading another paper, and again, these light bulb moments, like, oh, generalized exchange, right? And this notion that why do you help somebody who has a flat tire at the side of the road? Well, because you're hoping that in the future, when you're in trouble, somebody else, so that person is never going to help you again, but you help them because as part of your social system, you have generalized exchange. And that's what makes, so instead of tit for tat reciprocity, you have this sort of like, we're doing this, somebody will benefit, and we hope that they will also then help somebody else out, right? That's the whole point, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's like,
Mhm.
we're not doing this for tit for tat reciprocity, which is how, economists will sort of think about it oftentimes. And the generalized exchange model was like, again, this big aha moment for me as well. I'm like, oh, research is so damn cool, man. I'm learning these things. I'm seeing it in my data, and so I think again, this mentorship is how do we make mentorship more of a generalized exchange? How do we make opportunities available to more people? Alert them to opportunities, alert them to, that kind of stuff. So
Absolutely. Oh, this has been amazing talk. I wish I could spend more time.
We can do it again.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's try to do this again
Yeah.
in a couple of months or something and
Yeah.
see where we
Fun.
are. I would love to get more insight from you. I've learned a lot from the Reciprocity Project that it
Yeah.
was very surprising. I came
Yeah.
into it believing that people were a lot more altruistic
Yes.
than they really are. And then
Yes.
then I have to think about, okay, you think about Wikipedia, for example. The
Yes.
Wikipedians, there's like 5,000 of them that actually
Yes.
contribute, and then the
Yes.
whole world benefits from
Yes.
this, right? And
Yeah.
the exchange model is completely different than I thought it was going to
Yes.
be.
Yes. Yeah. Are you gonna write a book on this? I think.
I've actually started. Well, I have it, and I have to put it together using ChatGPT, and I've actually
Yeah.
tried to reach out to Harvard Business Publishing, and I've
Okay.
heard, but whatever. I would love to do that because there's nobody else has done this with an academic understanding of putting
Yes.
this. I mean, I guess you have with some of the stuff that you and I think there's a fellow at Northeastern that was doing some of this stuff as well.
Yeah.
But the idea of how do you connect with people,
Yes.
all these things are so
There's
different.
there are no playbooks or field guides to it.
No,
It's just
no.
like people get lucky, like I have been, or some kind of received wisdom, that kind of stuff. So I think I love this because I think if you can empower more people,
Mm-hmm.
right, to think this way, but also to like have some tools.
Yeah, but then also just to say, screw it, I'm gonna do it. Right,
Yeah,
like I know it's scary, and part of the reason why we don't go into, or part of the reason why industry seems so attractive is you're gonna make a ton more money. You just do, right? Um, and you do things kind of rationally, and then you just have to. If we don't do
and you
anything
have
that's
a boss.
irrational,
If you're working in industry, you have a boss. Love
yeah,
them.
that's true. But there's a part of what we do, and anything that's innovative
Yes.
is completely irrational, and it's
Yes.
for
100%.
totally
100%.
weird things,
100%.
right? So thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
Real treat. Real treat.
Yeah, this is fun. This is fun.
Okay. Good.
So let's keep in touch then.
Take care.
All right, bye.